There's a place in Italy where time stopped in 1963. Not metaphorically, literally. The clocks still hang on crumbling walls, plates still sit on tables, shoes line the doorways of empty homes. But no one has lived there in over 60 years. The Italian government doesn't want you to go there. They've erected fences, posted warnings, deployed guards. And yet, people still try to get in. Because what happened in Curon Venosta wasn't just an evacuation. It was an erasure. And the water that swallowed it whole still hides something beneath.
Northern Italy, 1950. The village of Curon sits in a valley, tucked between the Alps and the Austrian border. About 1,000 people call it home. Farmers, shopkeepers, families who've lived there for generations. The valley is quiet, peaceful, the kind of place where everyone knows your name. At the center of the village stands a 14th century bell tower, tall, stone, unmistakable. Every Sunday, its bells echo across the mountains. But in the years following World War II, something changes. The Italian government approaches the valley with a proposal. They want to build a dam, a hydroelectric dam that will flood the valley, create a reservoir, provide power to the region. The villagers protest. They plead. They refuse to leave. This is their home, their history, their land. But the government doesn't listen. In 1950, construction begins, and by the summer of 1963, the water starts to rise.
The evacuation happens in stages. First, the outer farms, then the homes closest to the riverbed, then the village center. Families are given weeks to gather what they can carry: furniture, photographs, heirlooms passed down through centuries. Everything else is left behind. Some villagers refuse to go. They barricade themselves in their homes. They curse the engineers. They pray for a miracle. None comes. By July 1963, the dam is complete. The floodgates close, and the water begins its slow, inevitable climb. It takes days. The streets flood first, then the ground floors, then the second stories. The bell tower, the heart of Curon, is the last thing visible. Its spire rises above the waterline like a tombstone. For a while, the bells still rang, moved by the current, haunted by the wind. Then, one day, they stop. The village is gone, erased, replaced by a reservoir called Lago di Resia. But that's not where the story ends. That's where it gets strange. In the years following the flood, locals begin reporting something unusual. Sounds. Deep beneath the surface of the lake, they hear ringing. Not the wind, not the water. Bells. The tower's bells, still ringing, even underwater. At first, officials dismiss it. Acoustics, they say. Echoes from the mountains. Tricks of the mind. But the reports don't stop. Fishermen hear it in the early morning. Hikers hear it at dusk. Tourists hear it in the dead of winter when the lake freezes over. And then there are the sightings. People claim to see lights beneath the ice, flickering, moving. Others report shadows, human-shaped, walking along the submerged streets. One woman, a former resident, swears she saw her childhood home through the frozen surface, the windows intact, a candle burning inside. When she returned the next day, there was nothing. Just ice, just water, just silence. The Italian government refuses to comment. They seal off parts of the lake, restrict diving, install cameras, but they never explain why.
In 1983, 20 years after the flood, a team of engineers is sent to inspect the dam. Routine maintenance, nothing unusual. But when they descend into the reservoir to check the structure, they find something. The bell tower, still standing, still intact, is not empty. There are objects inside: furniture, books, a child's toy, things that should have floated away, things that should have rotted, things that should not still be there. One of the divers later describes the scene in an interview. He says the water inside the tower was different, colder, heavier. He says he felt watched. He never went back. The government classifies the report. No further inspections are authorized.
By the 1990s, Lago di Resia becomes a tourist destination. The bell tower, the only visible remnant of Curon, is now a landmark. People come from all over the world to photograph it. In winter, when the lake freezes, you can walk across the ice and stand at its base. But locals warn against it. They say the ice around the tower is thinner, unstable. They say people have fallen through, and some who fall through are never found. In 1998, a German tourist vanishes near the tower. His friends say he walked out onto the ice, got close to the spire, then disappeared. No body is recovered. No explanation is given. The case remains open. In the early 2000s, something even stranger happens. The water drops. A drought hits the region. The reservoir shrinks. And for the first time in 40 years, parts of the village re-emerge. Foundations, streets, walls. Archaeologists and historians rush to document it, but what they find doesn't match the records. Buildings that were supposed to be demolished before the flood are still standing, intact. Streets that were supposed to be cleared are lined with debris, fresh debris. And in one of the homes, they find something that stops them cold. A table set for dinner. Plates, glasses, silverware. And food, not rotted, not decayed, preserved, as if someone had eaten there recently. The site is closed immediately. No public access, no photographs, no explanation. The water rises again the following year, and the village disappears once more.
So what's really happening at Lago di Resia? Let's start with the rational explanations. Theory 1. Acoustic phenomena. The bell tower, even submerged, could still produce sound. Water currents, structural vibrations, the metal of the bells reacting to temperature changes. This would explain the ringing, but it doesn't explain the lights, the shadows, the preserved objects. Theory 2. Psychological projection. The former residents of Curon experienced trauma, displacement, loss. It's possible that reports of sightings and sounds are manifestations of collective grief, the mind filling in what was taken away. But this theory struggles with the physical evidence, the objects, the fresh debris, the inconsistencies in the ruins. Theory 3. Residual energy. Some paranormal researchers believe that traumatic events leave an imprint on a location, a kind of psychic residue. The forced evacuation, the flooding, the destruction of an entire community. Perhaps that trauma lingers, replays, manifests. This would explain the reports of figures, the sounds, the sense of being watched. But it's not a scientific explanation. It's a hypothesis, unprovable. Theory 4. Government cover-up. This is where things get darker. What if the Italian government knew something about Curon before they flooded it? What if there was a reason they were so insistent on erasing the village? Some researchers point to World War II. Curon was near the Austrian border, a strategic location. Others point to older history, legends of the valley, stories that predate the village itself. What if something was buried there, hidden there? And what if flooding it wasn't about power at all? It's speculative, conspiratorial even. But it's hard to ignore the secrecy, the restricted access, the classified reports.
Here's what we know for certain. A village existed, it was flooded, the people were displaced. Here's what we don't know. Why the government sealed off sections of the lake. Why objects inside the tower remained intact. Why the ruins, when exposed, didn't match the historical record. And why, to this day, people still hear bells ringing beneath the water.
Let's go deeper into what doesn't make sense. Question 1. The preserved objects. When the 1983 dive team found furniture and books inside the tower, they should have been destroyed, waterlogged, disintegrated, but they weren't. How is that possible? Some suggest the tower created an air pocket, a sealed environment. But engineers say that's unlikely. The tower had windows, openings. Water would have flooded it completely. So why were those objects still there? Question 2. The fresh debris. When the drought exposed parts of Curon in the early 2000s, archaeologists found debris that shouldn't have existed. Fresh wood, intact glass, objects that looked recently placed. But the village had been underwater for 40 years. Where did those objects come from? Question 3. The missing people. At least 3 people have disappeared near the bell tower since 1990. All of them were last seen on the ice, near the spire. No bodies, no remains, no trace. The official explanation is that they fell through and drowned. The lake is deep, the current is strong. But why weren't their bodies ever recovered? And why do locals insist the ice around the tower is different? Question 4. The lights. Multiple witnesses have reported lights beneath the frozen surface of the lake. Not reflections, not natural phenomena. Lights that move, that pulse, that seem intentional. What are they? Bioluminescence doesn't occur in freshwater alpine lakes. Electrical equipment wouldn't function underwater for decades. So what's the source? Question 5. The ringing. This is the most persistent mystery. The bells. Even if water currents or structural vibrations could produce sound, the bells were removed in the 1970s. Officially, they were salvaged, placed in a museum. But people still hear ringing. Every year, every season. How?
In 2009, a documentary crew received permission to film at Lago di Resia. They wanted to capture the bell tower in winter, the frozen lake, the haunting beauty of it. On the final day of filming, the director decided to do something unusual. He wanted to drop a camera into the water, film the submerged village, see what was still down there. The crew attached a waterproof camera to a cable and lowered it near the bell tower. The footage shows exactly what you'd expect at first: murky water, silt, the stone base of the tower. But then, at around 40 meters deep, the camera catches something. A window. Still intact, still framed. And inside the window, something moves. It's brief. A flicker. A shadow passing. The crew pulled the camera up immediately. When they reviewed the footage later, they couldn't explain it. Some said it was a fish, a trick of delight, a malfunction. But the director disagreed. He said it looked human. The footage was never released publicly.
Today, Lago di Resia remains a popular tourist destination. The bell tower stands as a monument, a reminder of what was lost. But the locals don't go near it. They don't walk on the ice in winter. They don't swim in summer. They don't fish near the spire, because they know something the tourists don't. The village of Curon didn't just disappear. It's still there, beneath the surface, frozen in time. And if you listen closely, on a quiet morning, when the wind is still and the water is calm, you can hear it. The bells, ringing, calling, waiting.
Some places aren't meant to be forgotten, and some places won't let you forget, even if you try, even if you flood them, even if you erase them from the map. They remain, beneath the water, in the shadows, in the sound of bells that should no longer ring. Curon Venosta is gone, but it's not empty. And maybe that's the most terrifying thing of all. Not that a village was destroyed, but that it never truly left.
This is only one story. There are hundreds more they never told you. Subscribe and follow so you don't miss what comes next.